Frank Sinatra famously sang, "Regrets, I've had a few." We can all hold on to regrets. Regrets about things we have done, things that have happened to us. Too often though, the past can continue to spill into the present, affecting our behaviour, our emotional state and our choices.
Sometimes we're aware of this, but all too often it can be unconscious, meaning unless we do the work to recognise it and move through it, it can continue to block out our progress and blunt our success. In this episode, we look at ways of recognising and releasing regrets so that you can open up your way forward unshackled by your past. Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. How are you all?
I hope you're all having a wonderful time. What have we been up to? It's like another busy, packed week.
It has. More podcasts, more interviews. What else have we been up to?
Oh, the corporate we work with actually said that our workshop was so well received. They've asked if they could keep using video snippets, which is amazing.
I know. That was all around hybrid working, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so I know
thriving in the hybrid working environment.
I know so many of you are
might be going back to remote working soon, looking at the news.
So we are actually doing this real time, so this goes out today. So we're not going to mention the news because actually we're taking our own medicine and not really diving into it too much.
Focus on the positives.
Focus on the positives. But yeah, we do know so many of you are struggling with the hybrid working at the moment. It's all about routine and structure, isn't it? And I think people did get used to being at home, working at home. A lot of people that we worked with managed to get their nutrition, their fitness, their mindset all dialed in. And now, obviously, commuting backwards and forwards to work even twice a week has made people feel a little bit disjointed and a little bit outside their comfort zone. So we're helping a lot of people kind of get their groove back, aren't we?
Yeah, there was a lot of blurring of boundaries as well, I think, between workspace, home space, rules, all that kind of stuff. So
had its pros and cons.
I really enjoyed doing that workshop, actually. It was amazing.
Oh, I know. It has its pros and cons, doesn't it? But what we wanted to say...
Oh, here's a big positive. Now, we said we would start name-checking people.
Yes.
So, this is from,
if you are listening, Fool with a Plan.
You're not a fool.
You are not
You've got a great plan.
We love this review from you. Thank you so much, Fool with a Plan.
Yes,
we love you lots.
you.
So it says, I love Claire and James's enthusiasm, playfulness and deep practical knowledge on creating and living an amazing midlife. I have been binging on their show lately, and although I subscribe to a lot of podcasts, this is one of the few that I try and catch every new episode right when it comes out. And this is from the US. So thank you, Fool with a Plan from the US.
Well, I hope you're listening to this week, and thank you for that review.
I hope you're binge listening to this one too.
Yeah, it really makes our day when we see
It does. It actually really, really does. So we might not be friends on Facebook and other social media places, but we did share it because we were chuffed. Chuffed, I love that word.
We love it.
Chuffed
I'm glad
to
you
bits.
love it too.
Thank you.
And this week, we thought we would talk about regret. And specifically, releasing regret. Now, Frank Sinatra famously sang, "Regrets, I've had a few." I won't attempt to sing, because I definitely haven't got Frank Sinatra's voice. But more the Sid Vicious version.
Stop it. Sid Vicious.
He did do a cover of it.
I know.
And he had a lot of regrets. But, we can
Obviously, you don't regret marrying me, do you? That's...
Rarely, Claire, rarely.
Rarely.
Of course not.
That's so mean.
Oh,
I thought you were going to give you an opportunity to be really nice to me then.
I am always nice to you. No, this is something, because it came up for me, I think, earlier this week. Something came up that I thought I dealt with from far in the past, and I clearly hadn't. And it's caused me to do some work around it, but also thought it'd be really useful for you guys, because regrets are something that we all have, and that it's all too easy to hang on to them. And then that past can continue to spill into our present, affects our behaviour, our emotional state, even the choices we make. And a lot of the time, we're not even aware of it. It can be unconscious. Unless we do the work to actually recognise what's going on and move through it, it's going to continue to block our progress and blunt our success. So
that's what
we want to share with you, yeah.
It's I think it's going to be quite a personal one, because James is right. About a week ago, because we work together, live together, we're like little joined at the hip twins, and it's really, really lovely. But at the same time, sometimes it's not, because I can feel, and the same goes for James when I'm not feeling myself. I can really feel when James isn't feeling himself before he feels in himself that he's not feeling himself. And
I was going to make a terrible joke about feeling myself, but I won't.
Oh my goodness. Cut. No, we'll leave that in, just because James says something inappropriate pretty much every podcast, so why would this be any different? No, so I could feel that there was something a little bit off about James. And I did keep asking, how us women do tend to do, are you okay? And he wasn't opening up, and I was thinking, okay, we're just gonna let it go for a little bit. But he's such a beautiful soul that in the end we sat down to communicate, and you realise what you've just said there, which was there was something playing on your mind about regret, some choices you'd made and some things that had been done to you, that were actually starting to impact you in the present moment and some of the stuff we were doing. And so we talked through a lot of this, and actually some of the things that we're going to go through now are some of the things that I did ask James about, because obviously it helps that we're both coaches. So I kind of coached James a little bit, and now we're going to offer some of that to you. But James has been doing some fabulous work, work on himself to really move through this. I could already see that there's been some big healing going on.
Oh, thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
And thanks for your help and support on it as well.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's really been amazing. I mean, I can't overstress the importance of this, if we're carrying these things, still holding on to them, it will impact us in so many ways, and in my behaviour, it can be like a sudden kind of like panic around the business and throwing myself into like action in any direction, kind of just motivated by like, I need to be doing something to make things all right. So, I mean, that's just like a pattern that I'm lucky enough I've now learned to recognise it and go, that's interesting. Why am I doing that? Okay, it links back to this. And then I can work on the root cause of it. So if you already know like some of the things you're holding on to, that's great. But for many of us, it is in our unconscious or our subconscious. So what we have to look out for is the triggers. What triggers us.
I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, I hope you don't mind, because I think this is going to be really helpful, and I think it is helpful when we share our own stories. So I do this too a little bit. So when we are in a place of thriving, which we are now, and I'm going to say that out loud and publicly because I'm not scared that we're thriving. Again, there's when you've been in quite striving mode for a really long time. I think this is some of the stuff that we talked about on other podcasts. When you're in striving place for a really, really long time, and then you find a new way of working, which is in flow and allowing and surrendering and trusting. That little bit of your subconscious mind can come back, and it can question this way of thriving. It can question whether you're going to lose it all, or whether someone's going to come along and sidesweep it from you, or someone's going to do something mean and nasty, and then it's gone again. And I think that's something that I recognise in myself, and I'm always aware of that, and I am moving through that so much better now, which is why we're in a constant state of flow, so much better than we ever have been. But I kind of felt that was something that you were experiencing, Mr. D, wasn't it?
Definitely. And that's actually an interesting one, actually. It just made me realise there that it's I'm sure many of you will be able to relate to this, whether it's, a health goal, financial goal, business goal, that you're kind of like, I know, and then you get it working. It's like, this is great, it's working.
It's gonna go
and
wrong.
Then almost instantly, as soon as you have that thought, the fear thought comes in of like, what's going to go wrong? And that, I've realised now, is a real sign to me that I was still hanging on some of this stuff. And like Claire says, we've done the work on it to come through. unfortunately, a bit of it resurfaced this week, so I've done work on it again to release it. And it's probably stuff you've got to work on a few times over, actually. Each time you do it, it will lessen until you can get rid of it so it's not impacting you anymore. But
work in progress all the time.
One of the things to look out for is the trigger, right? The trigger is the clue. So what's triggering you? This is if you're not aware of what your regret's about. Right? You might not have a thing that you consciously know, like that's impacting you, your choices, your behaviour, your beliefs. But it's something trigger you, similar kind of thing. So for me, an example is like I see a lot of very inauthentic people on social media, and that triggers me. I'm like, oh, you're actually like willfully misleading people there, and it triggers me. And that triggers me. It goes back to my own personal experience. When I leapt from the corporate world into moving to Ibiza, and I was willfully and deliberately misled in acquiring a business that turned out to be like a complete dead duck with multiple accounting issues and all the rest of it, and left me in a real financial mess. And that's the thing that's resurfaced for me.
I get really emotional when you talk about it, because James and I have talked about it so many times. And again, when it reared its head, again, I had to stop myself getting really, really cross about it as well, because I'm really fierce about the people that I love, as we should be. But what James went through in that situation was absolutely horrendous. So no wonder that sometimes it's triggering for you when you see people on social media being what they're not and being fake and misleading people, and there's that sense of justice. It's not fair, it's not right, and actually triggering the regret of you making that decision. Exactly that, because the trigger is the teacher, and the harder it pokes you, the more it's telling you that there's something there that needs to be worked on. So first of all, if you're not sure, you maybe know very clear what your regret is. Maybe you're not sure. Look at what's triggering you regularly. Not just stuff that's bad news generally, which triggers everyone, but if there's certain behaviours you observe, things that come up, people that trigger you, what's the lesson underneath that? Why are you being poked there? What needs healing within you? So have a think about this. What incidents from your past still come to mind from time to time and make you feel angry or resentful or unhappy? That maybe make you feel like a victim, or in some way you secretly blame yourself, contributing to someone else's harmful behaviour or allowing them to act out or hurt you or others. Yeah, and I'm just going to say on that, a lot of the time it's if something's been done to you, okay, we can obviously, it's not okay in their behaviour, and of course that's going to be triggering for you in the future. It's okay, and this is where the healing comes in. But what happens is, if someone's done something to you, what more frequently happens to us is we blame ourselves, and we have a sense of shame for believing that person, investing in that person, trusting that person. And actually that's what you end up holding on to, is that feeling of regret that you made that decision, invested that money, took that chance. And it's the almost like not trusting yourself, and the shame that you hold on to around that, and the regret of making that decision. So I just wanted to be really, really clear on that, because we're talking about James here, and I actually don't want the spotlight just to be on James, because it's a personal thing. But I think you're so brave in sharing that. So brave. I think you're so wonderful sharing that. But it's not just James. I've definitely experienced things in the past where things have been done to me, but at the same time, I'm like, Claire, why were you so stupid? Why did you believe that thing? What an idiot. Like, you'd even had that happen to you before, and you went and did it again. You should have known better, and all these things. And that's why when we get success and when we get happiness and when we feel like things are flowing, it's almost like, oh, hang on a minute, didn't you mess it up last time? Didn't you? Yeah, you regret that last time. You regret, are you going to do that again? And that's what the trigger is. It's almost like when we're happy and we're in flow, for me, that's when those regrets are triggered, and the shame and the guilt that comes around that. Definitely. And it's really important, when we're talking about this, like often we'll talk about, what was done to us or what the other person did, but also
part of the reason we still feel it is we're taking responsibility ourselves, as Claire said. So, and we do acknowledge we had a role to play in it.
Of course.
If someone was deliberately, harmful to us or misled us, so it's important to recognise our own feelings of whatever they are around that. Like Claire said, mine like shame, guilt, regret, sadness, and then look at how you can start to flip that around, which we're going to talk you through now.
And
with
this is
7 steps I think we've got here.
Yeah, this is like how we kind of coach each other, because James helps me just as much as I helped him with this. So the first one is this is a really simple one, but so poignant. Realise that you are capable of changing your perception of the regret. Just be willing to keep an open mind and know that it isn't fixed in stone and that you are able to change this thing that you feel like is holding you back.
Yeah, so in hypnosis or NLP, we'll call this reframing. But it's really important to know we do get to choose our thoughts and our perception, so we are capable of changing that if we want to.
Absolutely.
Second, here's the thing. Choose your present and your future, indeed, not the past. Because if that regret from the past is still impacting you, ask yourself whether you truly want it to. Because the chances are you don't. If you're still carrying it, it is going to still be impacting you.
Absolutely. And it's the same thing about kind of forgiveness, isn't it? It's about swallow it. It's about, you're only poisoning yourself by holding on to this regret.
I've just remembered a little parable, actually, which I think sums this one up particularly.
Do it.
Well, there's 2 monks from a very religious order, and in their order...
I love this
they're
one.
not even allowed to see women, let alone speak to them or touch them. Anyway, they're going to cross a river. And there's a woman there, and she says, will you carry me across? And the first monk's, no, absolutely not. We can't even speak to you. You won't look at her. The other monk's like, yes, I'll take you. So the monk carries her across, and she goes on her way. The first monk just starts berating the second monk, going, I can't believe you did that. Why are you still carrying her? And the second monk just goes, no, why are you still carrying her?
Yeah. Why are you still carrying it? I love that one. And number 3 is claim your own power to create a new story around this regret. Look for the positives that arose from the situation. What's changed you for the better as a result of what happened? Now, this was a question I actually asked James. I want you to go back on this story and say, if that hadn't happened, what would have happened if that hadn't have happened? And actually start looking for the positives that did come out of it. Because if that hadn't happened, I was trying to make James go back to all of this. So if that hadn't have happened to James, he wouldn't have actually built the most amazing retreats business. I actually probably would never even have met him. We wouldn't therefore have the life we have now, a little fur baby that we have now. We wouldn't be helping midlifers in the way that we are now. Seriously, if that one thing, the one decision that he regrets or did regret making and felt shame around, if he hadn't have made that, all these things wouldn't have happened. So that is reframing at its max. So I want you to think about that right now. That thing that you regret doing, the decision you made where someone hurt you or you hurt someone, think about what wouldn't have happened that's positive in your life if that hadn't have happened.
Yeah. And I don't want to trivialise this. People do have some really terrible things happen to them, and it can be really hard.
And we're not taking that.
Yeah. We're not trying to.
We're not going, put positive spin on it. We're not saying that at all, because we are not. We're not in that way inclined at all. We're not just. And also, it's really important to say sometimes it's so raw and you're still so close to it. This is years later for James, and it's years later for me doing this work. If you're really close up to this, of course you're not necessarily going to see the positives in this yet, because you haven't had enough distance, you haven't had enough time. And the whole thing, when they say time heals, this is part of the healing, because you've got evidence that good things have happened to you since that point. But James is making a really good point there. If you are in something, you're too close to it right now, but in the same sense, let this be a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith that in time, positive things and good things will come back to you, that you will pick yourself up again. When you fall, you will pick yourself up again, and actually you'll be able to look back and understand why some of it has led you to a more beautiful place.
Exactly.
Number 4, depersonalize it.
Yeah, so this is about just essentially taking some of the emotion out of it, taking the sting out of it. Was it really about you? Even though that event happened, that person did that thing, can you see what may have caused them to have done it? Was it specifically aimed at you? Could it have just been anyone? And it's not. We're not talking here about relating to that person or anything like that. But just understanding maybe the pain and fear that drove their actions, because that will help you distance yourself from their behaviour. Maybe they were in a terrible position and terrible pain. It's not excusing it. Very clear on that. It's not excusing it, but it helps you get emotional distance from it. And also, if you can, and then depersonalise your own role in it. If we can look at things more objectively and take our emotions away from it as much as we can, then that just helps lessen the impact.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first got together with James, there was a lot of things that I regretted. There was a lot of things in my life that I have done that I would like to say, like, releasing regret. I understand why they happened now, and I understand where I was coming from and what space I was operating from. Because I've had lots of therapy, I've done a lot of work on myself, I understand why I was operating in a certain way. That doesn't mean to say that some of my behaviour was excused, not at all. But I now understand that I was operating from the best place I could with what was going on for me at the time. Some certain things had happened to me in my life before I was making some of these not very helpful decisions and involving other people in my life and regretting how I behaved towards some of them and what I did. But I realised now that I was doing the best I could, really. I wasn't meaning any harm on purpose. I was operating from this place of being in pain and having not healed myself. I was externally influencing other people without really understanding or having awareness of why I was doing it.
5th, this is a massive one, because otherwise, like Claire said, you find the situation repeating. Recognise what you've learned to avoid the situation repeating. So these are some questions to ask yourself. What insight, information, or lesson am I meant to gain from this experience? What did I learn about myself or about the others involved? And how can I apply what I learned to the rest of my life? This is the thing that we always say, there's no such thing as failure, there's only learnings. But it's really important that we do learn. And if we find that we've got the same regret coming up over and over again, then that's becoming a stronger and stronger indicator that we need to fix something and make a change so we don't keep repeating the same pattern.
And number 6, so again, James and I haven't actually done this yet. We are going to do this
after this.
We are going to do this today. So we're doing it, and I'm going to do it with James. And I think this is really, really helpful just to let go of the past. But I've certainly done this little ritual before. It's called a releasing ritual, and letting go of the regret. So I write down the things. I've done this. I write down the things that I regret, some of the decisions that I've got a bit of shame around, some of guilt, some of the things that, other people have done to me. I regret other things that, people have done to me. So I write them all down, and then I sit with them. So each one I sit with, and then I peel that bit off. So I write them all down, and then I rip that one off one by one, read it to myself, and then I burn it in a flame, and I watch it go up in the flame. And I say something like, I release this regret now to a higher power, basically, whether you believe in God or not. So I release this regret to a higher power. That's that one done. Second one, rip that one out of the pad. Read it, feel it, and actually, again, say just letting it go. Be still with it and release it. And at the end, I just say, thank you. This is my time to move on.
That's it's a beautiful one to do. That's a really powerful one.
This is my time to move on. I can't keep stuck here.
Yeah, a variation of that one you can do is you just get like a big stone, hold it in your palm, and just look at it. Just imagine all your feelings about the regret going into it, and then when you're ready, just smile as you throw it away into deep water. So you're literally casting that regret away.
Absolutely.
7th tip, the final tip: keep focusing on your present and your future, on what you have now and where you're going. Remember that the path is the way and that life is our teacher. It just means, stuff's going to happen along the way, but we've got to just keep focused on what it's teaching us and where we're going.
And James is going to finish actually with an exercise to help, but what I would just say is, we're really not serving anyone. I mean, again, if you're too close to this right now, it's fine, but in the long run, if we've been holding on to this a long time, it will start showing up in the body as well. Like these regrets, the shame, the guilt, they start manifesting in physical ways, in how we're thinking and how we're behaving to other people. And honestly, it's time you deserve so much more than holding on to these regrets of other things that you've done or have been done to you. So we just really, really encourage you to let these things go now. You're so worthy of just releasing it. So that's all I wanted to say before James does his little NLP technique here.
It's a variation on, and again, a hypnosis and NLP technique. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is make sure you're not driving or anywhere. You want to be sat down, just safely sat down at home, where you're not going to be disturbed for just a couple of minutes, actually. This is best done if you repeat it. Maybe go through it 5 or 6 times over. And each time you do it, it will reinforce it, diminish the past. But what I need to do first, actually, is think about the future. So this regret, this thing you're holding on to now, imagine yourself in 6 months, a year from now, sat where you're sitting, wearing the clothes you're sitting, but feeling the emotions of this regret, still holding on to that. Like the first monk at the river crossing, you're still holding on to all those emotions, all that baggage. I want you to really clearly feel, how does that feel? How does that feel? I want you to imagine that you're seeing that in front of you. Project a step out yourself. You're actually seeing that. Seeing you up there on a massive screen. Sitting there. All those feelings. All that baggage.
Notice your posture. Notice your posture.
Your breathing. Is this what you want for yourself? Is this what you want? It's not. So what I want you to do is fade the colours out of that picture. Fade them out till it goes black and white. And maybe it starts to become more blurry. And just start to push that image further and further away. As you do so, let the sounds of it go. Let the emotions subside as well, so the feeling's less and less. So just keep pushing it. It disappears in a pinprick you can't see. Now I'd like you to imagine yourself sat in the same space, in the same time ahead, 6 months, a year from now, but having let go of that regret, having let go of that past. What emotions do you feel now? How much more confident, how much more empowered, how many more positive decisions you're making, how much more positively are you living your life? And again, project that up onto that huge screen in front of you. Notice yourself, what are you wearing? How are you different? How is your energy different? Are you glowing more? Is your posture better? What are those really positive emotions? Now magnify that image, brighter, louder. Bring it closer to you and step into it. So that's what you want to anchor in, that image. If you want to, you can do something like just touch a thumb to a finger, pinch your earlobe, something as an anchor, as you imagine that really bright image of the powerful you that has let go of the past, stepping into it, and then just keep rehearsing it. Over time, you only need to do that anchor motion to bring that feeling back. As I say, just repeat this process, fading out the old and bringing in the new.
Absolutely. So we really hope that this rather personal and open discussion about some of the stuff that we've been experiencing even in the last week, and some of the work that I did, especially when I first got together with James, with releasing some of my regrets. You've got 2 really practical techniques there, with the writing things down and burning them, and then the switching screens that James has just done with you, the NLP hypnosis technique. So we would love to hear your thoughts on this. We really would. As always, please get in touch with us at team@themidlifementors.com. We love to hear your stories. We do read all of your emails that we get in, and we're really touched by them. Really, we are. Please share and also rate our podcast like the lovely person did that we mentioned right at the beginning of this podcast. But honestly, I'm just giving you permission now to release your regret. So the final piece of this is James and I are sitting here with you listening, giving you permission to release the regret. You did the best that you could at the time, but now it is time to let go and move forward into your glorious life. And we're sending you so much love. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah.